Hello and welcome to UK Versus, where today we're talking about how to play shard bugs. You may have seen some content coming from myself and other people about this brand new TCG that is just over a year old and is really fun to play. Let's get into it and how to play shard bugs. Shard bugs is a devotion driven card game where you take your where you where you take your bugs and you use them to generate devotion. The win condition is to get yourself to 20 devotion before your opponent, and you want to reduce your opponent's devotion to allow you to win. How do you do this? Well, you use this by channeling through your cosmic avatars. These are the leaders of your deck. They have their own abilities. They sit on their throne from a special zone in the field of play, and they all have their own alliances and alignments. But before we get into that, let's break down the zones of shard bugs. So you have the field. This is where bugs are. This is where bugs battle. This is where they're played. Hive, which is what is used to generate dust, your resource. The avatar's throne, where the cosmic avatar sits. The splat zone, which is where destroyed, discarded cards go, and the deck zone, where your deck is played. As mentioned before, you have your cosmic avatar that sits upon their avatar's throne. They have their name, they have their abilities, and they have their light indicator. Each of these cosmic avatars has very powerful abilities, but the alliance indicator is the key here. This is what your deck will be built around, and this is what bugs and units you'll be using outside of the unaligned mercenaries. Bugs are the critters that make up your alliance army. If they're in your field, they can attack your opponent's devotion. They can block attacks against your devotion if they aren't exhausted, but they can't attack other bugs. Only if there is ability on the field that allows them to attack, to force other bugs into attack. Whilst if you have a bug in your hive, you can use it to generate dust. You can even use this to generate the dust of your alliance, which will be indicated on the card, or you can use it to generate neutral dust if the bug in your hive you're using to generate the dust is unaligned. So let's break down the anatomy of a card. In the top left hand corner, you have the dust cost. This will tell you how much neutral and alliance dust you need to pass it. If it has the symbol, that's how much alliance dust you need to pass, whether that's 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then if it just has a grey circle with a number, that is how much neutral dust, in addition to the alliance dust, is needed to pass. Next to that, on the right hand, next to that in the middle, you'll have the name of the card, generally a cool indication as to how many of the card's name. Some have got some very cool references, like the Blue Eyes White Dragonfly. And then next to that, on the right hand side of your card, you have the devotion value. While it's in your field, you may exhaust this card when it's not dizzy, which we'll get into a little bit later on, to generate that much devotion towards your win condition. Then below that, you'll have the art, which may or may not feature flavor text. Just above your text box, you'll have the type line. This will tell you the type of bug you got, and this can generate into some other abilities. And then next to that, you'll have the rarity and the set of the card. This is very cool when it comes to deck building, because the rarity of the card also tells you how many copies of this card you may have in your deck. So if you have a common card, its rarity and set will be 5 of the set symbol, which means you can have 5 copies of this card. You can have up to 5 copies of this card in your deck. This makes deck building very intuitive, very clear, and when you're building your 60 card deck plus your cosmic avatar, you can quite easily build the deck knowing that the rarity is telling you how many copies of this card you can run. Below that, you have the text box. This is where you'll find your keywords, your abilities, whether they are focus, which allows you to take an opponent's ready bug and force it into a fight. Whether it's stomp, which means if you have any damage left over from your opponent's defense, it goes against devotion. These are very powerful abilities found in the text box, as well as any other abilities found in there, whether they are generating more dust, giving you abilities on splat, when they attack abilities. This is where you'll find all the information about what your bugs do whilst in the field or in the hive. Below that, on the left hand side, you have the attack value. This is how much damage this bug will do, not only to opposing enemy bugs if they block, but how much of your opponent's devotion they will reduce if the attack is successful. So if you have a bug that has 2 devotion value and 2 attack value, it can either generate 2 devotion for you or take 2 devotion away from your opponent if it's not blocked. In the next to that, you'll have your traits and your resistances. For traits, you'll either be a swimmer, which has the water symbol, a flyer, which has the wings, or a tunneler, which has a spade, and that it will tell you what your bug's trait is. And next to that will be resistances. This will be an opposing symbol. So if you have a flying trait and you resist water, you take 1 less damage from swimming bugs. Next to that, you have your defense total. This is how much damage must be dealt to this bug in a single turn to kill it. At the end of a turn, that health regenerates. So to splat this bug, to kill this bug and put it to the splat zone, that is how much damage has to be dealt to it. So at the start of the game, both players will reveal their avatar. They'll shuffle their decks thoroughly and present them to opponents to cut. You will then decide randomly who is going to go first, and the turn order begins with them moving back and forth between the 2 players throughout. At the start of the game, both players will draw 7 cards. In turn order, so starting with the player going first and then player going second, you may choose to mulligan. You may mulligan any number of cards in your opening hand and put them to the bottom of your deck, and then draw that many cards. You do not shuffle your deck. So when choosing to mulligan, be aware that there's a very high chance you'll never see those cards again. And because of how the system works with the hive and dust, high cost or late game cards aren't always a detriment. After you've gone for your mulligans, you then start the game. Going through the phases of a turn, at the beginning of your turn, you would ready all of your exhausted cards. You would then resolve any beginning of turn effects. You would draw your card again, apart from if you're the first player going first. And then you may perform any of the following actions in any order. You may play a bug from your hand to your hive. You may take any non-dizzy, non-token bug from your field and place it into your hive exhausted. You may play any action, bugs, items, support cards, or ready bugs in your hive by paying the dust cost from your hive. You may pay any equip costs to add items to your bugs, and then finally you may exhaust any number of bugs you want to gain devotion. After you go for the main phase, you go to the combat phase. So any bug you haven't exhausted for devotion, or you cannot exhaust for devotion, you may then use to either keep ready for defense on your opponent's turn, or enter the combat step where you exhaust any number of bugs to attack your opponent's devotion. A exhausted bug cannot be used defensively, so keeping some bugs up for defense if you generate devotion is a key, but keeping your opponent off their devotion is very powerful. Now, the one thing I would say to remember is this is the last thing you do in your turn. You cannot, after attacking, play any bugs or items or support cards, move anything into your hive, or playing anything into your hive. The combat phase is the last thing you do before the end phase, so please keep that into account. At the end of your turn, during the end phase, all damage is removed from all bugs, any end of turn effects happens, and then priority passes to the next player. During the combat phase, so before the end of phase, you choose how many bugs you're attacking with, exhaust them, and then resolve any attack triggers. Then, if your opponent has any ready bugs, they may choose to block with any number of those bugs. Multiple bugs can block one bug, but multiple bugs cannot block more than one bug. So I can chuck 3 bugs into one of my attacking or one of my opponent's attacking bugs, but I cannot choose one bug to block 2 of my opponent's bugs unless they have an ability that says so. Block triggers are then activated after you've chosen that, and then damage is dealt simultaneously. So you deal damage to your opponent's bugs, they deal damage to your bugs, and then any stomp damage or any unblocked damage hits to your opponent's devotion, and then any damage trigger resolve. After that, you keep going back and forth, generating devotion, taking your opponent off devotion, resolving actions and abilities. The one thing I would say to mention here is if you have a quick action, any action that has quick inside its type line can be played at any point. That you have priority. So anytime that your opponent plays something or passes priority, so before blocks, after something's played, generating dust does not transfer priority. But if your opponent attacks, plays a bug, moves a bug from their hive to their field, you can use a quick action to interact with it. This is very powerful and can lead to some very cool interactions. This does, however, lead to a stack, and it's if you played TCGs before, it's a first in, last out stack build. So if I play my bug, if you then use a quick action, I may then respond with another quick action, and then you resolve them from the latest card played to the first card played. So you start off with the top of the stack and work your way down. Other than that, that is how the game is played. You play cards into your field, you add cards to your hive to play cards into your field, and you utilize those cards in your field to move towards your win condition. You want to get to 20 devotion before your opponent, keeping them off their devotion with attacks and moving yourself up towards 20, utilizing your cards' abilities. You have the Mars cards, which are more control based. They look at controlling your opponent's field whilst generating devotion. Whereas the opposite to that, you have Sol or Solar, which is a fast generation builder utilizing cards in your field. And then you have Luna, which is a more mid-range build at the moment. There are more factions coming, but Luna is designed to do the best of both worlds. Control your opponent's devotion output whilst increasing your own. There's some very cool ways to play, and this game has some very fun interactions, and games can turn on a pin. I'll go into keywords in another video because this one's gone on quite long enough, but I will catch you all at game night. I'm really looking forward to seeing if people find this video useful, and if you have any other questions about bug shards or want to jam some games in general, feel free to reach out because this is such a fun game and I really enjoy playing it. I will see you all in the fields generating some devotion. Now remember, for theories, news or more, win, lose or draw, keep it UK versus. Bye.